What's the most human emotion of all? One that has driven people to extreme lengths just to fulfill it. A cursed feeling that has brought ruin to many lives. A tale as old as time, as the biblical first murder of Cain to his brother Abel was a result of his jealous rage. Or the hero Achilles in the Iliad, following the death of his brother Patroclus, incurs his vengeful wrath which ends in Achilles slaughtering countless Trojans. While their rage will go down in history as examples of men blinded by a moment of hatred, in some cases, characters are not defined by one moment of their fury. Instead, that feeling of vitriol lingers, permeates into their character, and becomes part of them. A side of themselves they cannot ignore, and instead give into a lasting hatred. This hatred lingers for generations of a bloodline. These rare few are labeled generational haters. But before we go on to our first example, please like and subscribe, and let's get into it. The incarnation of evil, bearer of the Triforce of Power, and scourge of Hyrule, Ganondorf bears a sin from ancient times to reincarnate and hunt down the spirit of the hero due to Demise's dying curse that his hatred will live on for eternity. No generation will know peace because of him. That's pretty intense. The ageless fight between Link and Ganondorf is one of the most well-known in gaming history, as the two have been decking it out since 1986 with the release of The Legend of Zelda on NES. And since then, we have had over 10 appearances in games where he plays an antagonist. I'm also counting Ganon in this, as they're pretty much the same. In the timeline of the Zelda world, which is so convoluted and a story for another day by the way, but Demise's curse takes place in Skyward Sword, which is at the start of the timeline. Following that is Ocarina of Time, likely hundreds of years into the future since it has no mention of Skyloft. After Ocarina of Time, the timeline splits into three, one where Ganondorf beats the hero of time at the end of the game, which I think is important to point out, as there are still 4 games after this in the timeline where he's just the main villain, which dedication to Link to come back in any era where evil prevails. And I'm not listening to Nintendo when they say Link isn't reincarnated, because that's fucking stupid. You're telling me this twink with blonde hair and the same name isn't the same as every other one? Fuck out of here. But back to Ganondorf. I don't think you guys understand just what a pain in the ass this guy has been. He takes over Hyrule countless times, with even more failed attempts. Hell, he even flooded it one time, because sure, why the hell not? He killed Link's father? I don't know how you describe it, but the Deku Tree, which is basically the father of all the Kokiri children in the forest where Link grew up. He kidnapped random kids on some Diddy shit, enslaves people, and almost causes the extinction to the Zora and Gorons. I mean, even when this guy isn't directly fighting Link, he's making a huge mess for the hero Hyrule cleanup, literally being a cycle of reincarnation fueled by Demise's pure hatred. I think Ganondorf deserves a spot on this list as a generation hater. If he's not, then I don't know who is. Well, let's see if our next hater can top him. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, this bum Sith Lord Palpatine decided to groom a kid into becoming his overlord buddy, spending his pastime screwing over the Skywalker legacy. Chancellor Palpatine rose to power in the Senate through his tactics of manipulation, which he also utilized on a young Anakin Skywalker, corrupting his mind with a lust for power. Anakin was never a bad person per se, angry of course, due to his circumstances growing up as a powerless slave, sure, but never bad. Not until Palpatine pushed him further and further to the dark side, slowly escalating his transition as Palpatine manipulates Anakin to kill Count Dooku, and eventually sort of kill Mace Windu, and later lead Order 66 to wipe out all the Jedi from the galaxy. Anakin always had potential to be good, but the fear of the Jedi allows the evils of Palpatine to sow its seeds of sin in his brain. As Qui-Gon Jinn put it,
his fate is uncertain. He's not dangerous.
Anakin, following a duel with his mentor in closest combat Obi-Wan, is left horribly disfigured and becomes the terror of the galaxy, Darth Vader. Alongside Palpatine, the two ran the Empire as Sith Lords, but no matter how much aura Darth Vader had, Palpatine was always the mastermind behind the scenes. However, a boy from Tatooine would change that. Luke Skywalker, son of Anakin, alongside Han Solo, Chewbacca, 2 trusty robots, his sister Leia, they're able to take down the Empire with a bit of help from his father too, as Anakin and Luke defeat Palpatine in a moment that redeems Anakin, showing he is a good person after all behind the layers of manipulation. And all is well in the galaxy. But no, somehow Palpatine returned, and terrorizes the 3rd generation of Skywalkers, as Kylo Ren, aka Ben Skywalker, son of Han Solo and Leia, sacrifices himself to put an end to Palpatine. That is, until Disney needs more money and makes another trilogy where it turns out Palpatine had his left nutsack frozen, so they make a clone of his DNA. Rats aside, Palpatine brought ruin to the Skywalker lineage, cursing them to a fight that ended with the erasure of the bloodline, as it ends with Ben. It's funny how they call it Rise of the Skywalker, just to have them kill off the legacy. And in that regard, Palpatine sort of won. He never had too much of a personal grudge against them, but I'm sure a lot of resentment lingered after he got his ass whooped by 3 generations of them. But there are stronger contenders for the biggest generational haters. It's time to exterminate. The Daleks from Doctor Who, while not an individual, the race of mutants trapped inside of robotic shells, have a deep resentment for the one Time Lord that never fails to follow their schemes. The Doctor.
I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey, the constellation of Kasterborous. I'm 903 years old, and I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below.
The Daleks have been out to get the Doctor all the way since 1963, basically when dinosaurs roamed the land, and since then, they have over 140 appearances. These exterminating cyborgs are driven by a hatred for every other species that cannot be quenched as they yearn for conquest. They have been biologically engineered to remove the parts of their brains that recognize as mercy, as they view it as a weakness. Hence, they must exterminate all other life forms. So good luck trying to reason with one, because their superiority complex means it's a laser for you without hesitation. For crying out loud, the Daleks even revered hatred, finding it beautiful. If your standard for beauty is almost popping a nerve at any minor inconvenience, then the Hulk must be the wet dream. Only the Doctor could bring out such hatred within the Daleks, and in that case, they thank him for bringing out the most spiteful version of them. Their resentment only strengthens with every regeneration of the Doctor, as one way or another, he always ends up screwing them over. A short list of what the Doctor has done to the Daleks: almost preventing them from existing by traveling to the Inception, set them back thousands of years, convinces one of them to blow its circuits to move off, and he's also probably killed enough of them to be considered a genocide. In that regard, the Doctor could also be considered a genuine hater, as he despises everything the Daleks stand for. The vicious cycle of violence disgusts him, a rare motion for him to showcase, showing just how intense their timeless conflict is, literally timeless, as the two sides have access to time machines, meaning they will be versing one another until peace reigns across all time and space, or the Doctor gets tired. And knowing my goat, no matter how old he is, he would still stand up against the cruel tyranny of the Daleks. Maybe his scope of space is too much to comprehend, so let's zoom in and focus back on Earth, more specifically, Transylvania. No, not the shitty Keanu Reeves version that turns him to a cuck. Instead, this is his incarnation for Castlevania, Count Vlad Tepes' Dracula. He has a burning animosity to humanity, after they wrongfully executed his wife Lisa, believing her to be a witch. He rightfully crashes out because of this. Like shit, I would too, man. I can't even blame him. He vows to eradicate every human too, which, yeesh, a bit of scream, but hey, let the vampire grieve how he wants. However, standing in his way of total human extinction is the Belmont clan, who have tasked themselves with the sacred mission of making the world a safer place through the extermination of vampires and other night creatures. The feud between Dracula and the Belmonts actually predates Lisa's death, however, as their generational rival ties all the way back to the founder, Leon Belmont. In the 11th century, back when Dracula was a human named Matthias Kronkvist, however the hell you pronounce that, he was actually best friends with Leon Belmont until Matthias' wife, Elizabetha, died and crashed out, becoming a vampire, basically betraying Leon. Yes, this motherfucker Dracula has had 2 separate crash outs over 2 separate wives. He can just not catch a break. Since then, boarding his plans have been the following Belmonts: the Goat, Trevor, Christopher twice, Simon twice, Richter, and Julius, who have each individually taken out this guy in different time periods. Like, how pathetic must you be to get whooped by the 5 different generations of the same family? My ass will just never be able to handle that embarrassment. Just hang up the cloak, little bro. His hatred for the Belmont family clearly knows no bounds, as I assure you that this list will be way longer if Konami made any more games. Please stop making slot machines and work on another mainline game, I beg of you! Anyway, enough of this Transylvanian punching bag. Time to go from one vampire to another. Dio Brando, the definition of evil, as ever since the day he was born, he hasn't shown a single shred of goodness in him. As Speedwagon himself so eloquently put it,
"He is pure evil, right down to his very bones. Is he a victim of circumstance, you're wondering? Not on your life! He's been evil since he drew his first breath."
You may be asking what Dio does to deserve this harsh labeling, and oh boy, where to begin. Dio poisons his own dirtbag father who abused him and his mother, which is fair, but that is like the only reasonable thing he does. Out of the goodness of his heart, George Joestar adopts him, as he also has a son who's the same age, Jonathan. Immediately upon meeting Jonathan, Dio fucking despises him, as he wants the Joestar fortune all for himself, so he makes Jonathan's life miserable. I mean, Jonathan is a pretty nice guy all things considered, and Dio doesn't give a shit. Immediately after seeing him, Dio kicks his dog Danny. No exaggeration at all, that kick was on site, like he had that shit on lock. He then goes to Jonathan's girl, Erina, and cucks Jonathan by stealing her first kiss unconsensually, which Jonathan of course beats the shit out of him for. Valid. Now, how does Dio respond to this? He fucking throws Jonathan's dog into the incinerator and acted all confused like, huh? Must have been the wind. He was only 12 when he did this, but my god, just wait. 7 years following that, Dio was slowly poisoning George. Jonathan finds out about this plot, and in an attempt to stop him, Dio turns into a vampire, and the two get into a fight that results in the Joestar mansion burning down. Dio runs away and begins to build his own vampire army, but Jonathan learns Hamon, basically sun energy that can kill vampires, and stops Dio at his mansion by cutting his head off. Great, Dio's dead. On Jonathan's honeymoon to America with his newlywed wife Erina, the same girl from earlier, Dio shows up, burns down the ship, and kills Jonathan. However, not before Jonathan takes a hold of Dio, to ensure that both of them perish in the fire. Erina is able to survive the ship accident, and it turns out she's carrying Jonathan's child. The Joestars live on. Great, Dio's dead. 95 years later, a coffin is fished up from the ocean that has Dio inside, who is now taking over Jonathan's body by replacing his head. This guy just cannot die. It's now up to Jonathan's grandson, Joseph Joestar, and his grandson, Joseph Cujo, as well as some allies to defeat Dio once and for all, as Dio's awakening has caused every Joestar to gain stands due to the blood connection they share now that Dio inhabits Jonathan's body. Because of this stand awakening, Jotaro's mother, Holly, isn't strong enough to handle it, so they have 50 days to beat Dio before she dies. The same thing is happening in a small town in Japan called Morio, to Joseph's illegitimate kid called Josuke. Imagine having such beef with a family that just returning to the world causes half of them to start dying, and the other half begin to hunt you down. Jotaro and the rest of his gang pull up to Egypt and murk his ass, finally killing that vampiric houseborn once and for all. Great, Dio's dead. Even post-mortem, however, his legacy haunts the bloodline as his children, except Jorna, he's chill, wreak havoc on Jotaro's daughter, Jolene, so she's another Joestar that has to put up with Dio's bullshit, and even more so, as Pucci, one of Dio's lovers, yeah, he had a whole harem, don't question it, basically attempts to reincarnate Dio as a green baby in an elaborate plan to accelerate the universe, because why the hell not? A big leap from British brat kicking a dog. This beef even transcends timelines, as in an alternate world, the Steel Ball Run, Diego and Johnny, the counterparts of Dio and Jonathan, duke it out in a race across America in the plot by the president to uncover the corpse of Jesus. Because, yeah, that's an average thing to happen. And even at the end of the Steel Ball Run, a different Diego from another timeline shows up. His hatred for the Joestars is just unrelenting. I'm not even gonna lie. I feel like I've had a stroke reading what I've just written, and I swear this is just the tip of the iceberg for how batshit insane JoJo gets. But after all that, I don't think anyone can deny that Dio Brando is the #1 generational hater of all time. Wrapping up today's video, and geez, these guys sure don't know how to take a break when it comes to hating on Bloodlines, which I would respect how endearing it is if it didn't involve mass murder, so yikes. If you guys think I missed any large examples, please comment down below, and I might make a sequel on your guys' suggestions. And please, 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 I beg of you, stick to fictional characters. I better not see any Austrian painters down in the comments below. I hope you guys liked today's video. Please like and subscribe, and see ya.